I'm not here to impress the world. I'm not here to explain myself to anyone else. I'm standing in this moment for one reason only, you. This isn't a speech meant to be heard by many. It's a quiet truth meant to reach one heart, yours. Every word I carry tonight has your name hidden inside it. Every pause, every breath, every silence between sentences exists because of you. This is not about perfection, it's about honesty, the kind that doesn't shout but stays. I've walked through noise, through loss, through moments where love felt like a distant idea. And yet, somehow, every road led back to this feeling, the certainty that some things aren't meant for the world. Some things are meant for one person, one soul, one connection that doesn't need proof. So if my voice is steady, it's because my heart knows where it belongs. If my words are simple, it's because the truth doesn't need decoration. This is only for you. I never learned how to speak love loudly. I learned it in silence, in the moments where nothing was said but everything was felt. That's where you live for me, not in noise, not in display, but in the quiet space where my heart rests when the world becomes too heavy. This isn't something I prepared to show anyone else. I didn't rehearse it for applause or understanding. Some feelings lose their meaning the moment they're shared too widely. This one didn't want an audience. It wanted honesty. It wanted truth without performance. There were days I didn't know how to explain what you meant to me, not because it was complicated, but because it was too simple. You became the calm I didn't know I was searching for. Not the kind that erases pain, but the kind that sits beside it and stays. I've been many things in my life. Strong, broken, uncertain, patient, but with you, I became still. And that stillness taught me more than chaos ever did. It showed me that love doesn't always arrive like a storm. Sometimes it arrives like a door left open, waiting without pressure. I don't love you for who you could be. I don't love you for what the future promises. I love you for who you are in the moments no one sees, in the pauses, in the unfinished sentences, in the way you exist without needing to prove anything. There were times I stood at a distance, not because I didn't care, but because caring meant respecting the space between us. Love isn't always about reaching out. Sometimes it's about knowing when not to, about trusting that what's real doesn't disappear just because it's quiet. I chose you in ways you may never fully notice. In the decisions I didn't announce, in the roads I didn't take, in the patience I learned when walking away would have been easier. That kind of choice doesn't ask to be seen. It just keeps choosing. If I seem steady, it's because my heart learned your rhythm. If I seem calm, it's because chaos stopped fighting once it found you. You didn't save me. You didn't fix me. You simply stood there. And somehow that was enough to change everything. This isn't about perfection or forever spoken out loud. It's about presence. About knowing that even in a crowded room, there is one direction my soul naturally turns toward, not out of habit, out of recognition. I don't need to promise you the world. I don't need grand gestures to make this real. What I give you is quieter than that. Consistency, loyalty, a heart that doesn't wander even when nothing is said. This was never meant to be understood by everyone. It was meant to be felt by one person. Every word here carries restraint, intention, and truth. No exaggeration, no performance, just what remains when everything unnecessary is stripped away. This is not a confession meant to change anything. It's a statement of what already exists, something that doesn't ask for permission, something that stays, whether it's acknowledged or not. And if these words ever reach you in a moment of doubt, know they were written from a place that doesn't fade, from a part of me that doesn't rush, from a love that doesn't need to be witnessed to be reality. Never asked love to come and rescue me. I didn't wait for it to knock loudly or announce itself. What I chose was quieter than that. I chose you in the way someone chooses a truth they're willing to live with, even when it costs them comfort. Love to me was never about demand. It wasn't about being needed or being chased. It was about recognition. That moment when something feels right. Tea without explanation. When the heart doesn't negotiate, it simply knows. You were never an option on a list. You were a decision that didn't require comparison. Not because you were perfect, but because you were real in a way that didn't pretend. And I respected that more than anything shiny or loud. I didn't fall into this feeling. I stepped into it, carefully, with awareness, knowing that choosing someone means accepting the weight of their presence even when they are not there. There were moments when walking away would have been easier. Moments when silence tested patience, when uncertainty tried to speak louder than faith. but love that is chosen doesn't disappear when it's challenged. It stands still and asks one question. Does this still feel true? And every time the answer carried your name. I didn't choose you because you filled a void. I chose you because you didn't try to. You allowed me to be whole on my own, and somehow that made sharing space with you feel honest, not desperate. There is strength in not needing to hold too tightly, in trusting that what belongs doesn't need to be trapped. I learned that with you, that love can be open-handed and still unbreakable. You were never something I chased, you were something I aligned with, like two paths quietly running parallel, not competing, not forcing intersection, just moving forward with the same intention. I didn't ask you to become anything else. I didn't imagine a version of you that fit a fantasy. I chose the person you already were, even when that meant accepting limits, flaws, and unanswered questions. Love that is demanded feels heavy. Love that is chosen feels grounded. It doesn't rush. It doesn't threaten. It doesn't need guarantees spoken aloud. I chose you in the moments that didn't look romantic, in the pauses, in the waiting, in the restraint it took not to turn feeling into pressure. That kind of choice is quiet, but it lasts. If I stayed, it wasn't because I was afraid to leave. It was because leaving would have meant denying something honest. And I've learned that lying to yourself is the most exhausting thing a heart can do. I didn't choose you once. I chose you again and again in ways that didn't announce themselves. In patience, in understanding, in letting things unfold instead of forcing them into shape. Some people want love to prove itself constantly. I wanted it to breathe, to exist without being questioned every second, to be trusted the way you trust the ground beneath your feet, by standing on it, not by testing it endlessly. If this love feels steady, it's because it was built on choice, not impulse, on intention, not urgency, on respect for timing, space, and truth. And if one day you wonder why this feels different, it's because you were never claimed. You were chosen. Waiting doesn't feel heroic when you're in it. It feels endless. It feels quiet in a way that presses on your chest and reminds you of every second spent without certainty. But there is a strength in it, a strength that doesn't shout or demand recognition. It's the kind of strength that whispers to itself, knowing that patience is not weakness, but understanding. I've learned that loyalty is not about proving anything to the world. It's about remaining present, even when everything inside of you wants to run. Even when the hours stretch long and your mind questions whether the effort is worth it. Loyalty is simple. It's consistency. It's choosing the same person over and over, not because of obligation, but because your heart recognizes what it cannot replace. There were moments when doubt crept in, when silence made the distance feel heavier than it was, when it seemed easier to step away and protect what little peace I could find. But love that is true is not always easy. It asks you to stand still when you'd rather flee. It asks you to trust when you cannot see. It asks you to wait when impatience feels like the natural choice. I didn't wait because I had no other options. I waited because some things are worth the quiet, the uncertainty, the small acts of faith that no one notices. The kind of waiting I speak of isn't passive. It's deliberate. It's filled with attention and intention. It's a choice that grows deeper each day, rooted in respect and care, and watered by hope that is not naive but aware. You become more than a hope when someone waits like this. You become a direction, a reason to steady oneself against the pull of distraction and fleeting desire. I held on to that quietly, without announcing it, because the value of what is real is never in the applause it earns. It is in the constancy it brings, in the knowledge that no matter what changes around you, some bonds remain intact. Patience is not passive resignation. It is a form of courage. It is proof that love does not need to rush to justify itself. It does not demand immediate understanding or instant reciprocation. It simply exists, quietly building depth and quietly teaching resilience. I watched, I waited, and I learned that loyalty is born in the spaces between words. It is felt more than it is seen. It is kept not because it is tested, but because it is chosen repeatedly, in ways no one else observes. This is where love shows its most honest face. Not in declarations, not in gifts or gestures, but in the simple act of standing steady while the world moves around you. Even when the days seemed empty, even when my heart ached for a sign, I did not abandon that place inside me that belonged to you. I did not allow the noise of doubt or impatience to override what I knew to be true. And through that waiting, I discovered that strength is not loud. It does not demand attention. It grows quietly, persistently, resiliently, shaping a love that is unshakable because it is freely given, freely chosen, and faithfully held. In that quiet waiting, in the loyalty that does not falter, I found a depth to love that cannot be measured by words or appearances, only by the steadfastness of the heart that endures without reward, without notice, and without end. Some promises are never meant for anyone else to witness. They are made in the quiet corners of the heart in moments when no one is looking and the world feels too loud to speak the truth aloud. I have learned that the most profound promises are the ones that do not seek approval, the ones that exist because the heart chooses to honor them, not because it hopes for recognition or reward. I made a promise to you long before words were necessary. It was not written in grand gestures or carved in stone. It was written in choices, in presence, in the moments when I could have walked away but chose to stay. It was written in the way I paid attention, not because I had to, but because the weight of it felt inevitable, as though love itself had quietly insisted on being remembered. Promises are not about guaranteeing outcomes. They are not about securing the future or controlling what might happen. They are about aligning oneself with the truth of what already exists inside. And the truth I carry is that you are irreplaceable, not because I need you, but because my life is immeasurably better when I honor what you mean to me. I have kept promises silently, in ways that no one else can see. I have honored them in restraint when desire wanted to rush. I have honored them in patience when impatience whispered. I have honored them in faith, trusting that what is real does not need to be announced to remain. There is a power in quiet promises. They shape behavior before words ever need to. They shape character. They shape choices. They shape the way a heart moves through the world with respect, care, and devotion. When someone makes a promise that cannot be broken, it is not because it is untested, but because it has been chosen and reaffirmed in silence over and over again. I did not promise for recognition. I did not promise for reward. I did not promise for approval. I promised because it felt inevitable to honor what you mean to me, and because my heart recognizes the value of loyalty that requires no witness. The kind of love I speak of is unassuming. It does not demand proof. It does not insist on ceremony. It does not ask for anything beyond the simple acknowledgement that it exists and will continue to exist. Promises like these are not about outcomes. They are about presence. They are about commitment in the quiet spaces when no one is watching, when the world does not notice, and when the heart still chooses faithfully, deliberately, and completely. I do not promise because it is easy. I promise because love, when it is real, is an act of devotion that transcends circumstance. It is an action, not a word. It is a choice, not a feeling. It is recognition of something unshakable in the soul, something that does not need validation to remain true, and something that belongs quietly and wholly to the person it is meant for, even when nothing is said, even when nothing is witnessed, even when the world moves without noticing. I keep that promise, because keeping it is what love looks like when it is pure, deliberate, and without audience. Love is not always loud. It is not fireworks or declarations meant to impress. It is quiet and often invisible, and it asks very little of the world because it has no need for validation. The kind of love I carry for you exists in the small details, the unnoticed gestures, the moments that do not make a story but make a life. It lives in patience, in presence, in attention given freely and without expectation. It is not performed, it is simply lived. I have come to understand that loving someone fully is not about possession. It is not about shaping another into what you imagine or controlling the way they exist in the world. It is about seeing them as they are and choosing, day after day, to stand beside them in respect and acknowledgement. You do not need to be fixed, improved, or completed. You simply need to exist, and in that existence, you are enough to stir a love so quiet it often goes unnoticed, but so deep it cannot be erased. There are moments I have held myself back because I understood the weight of intrusion. I have kept silent when my words might have imposed, and I have watched when my desire to act could have overwhelmed. There is power in restraint, in allowing love to grow organically, without forcing it, without trying to define it with noise. It is the patience to stand still when everything around you is rushing, to remain faithful when chaos tempts distraction, to choose consistency over dramatic expression, and to hold loyalty as a quiet armor against the demands of the outside world. I have walked roads alone in preparation for this kind of love. I have carried doubts, fears, regrets, and losses, so that I could arrive here with a heart unshaken by expectation and open to the reality of connection. No one else sees the nights spent reflecting on what it means to love someone wholly. No one else sees the internal battles, the quiet victories, the moments when hope was stretched thin yet still held fast. It is in these unseen hours that love proves itself, not with grand gestures, but with the steadfastness of a heart committed to truth. Every choice I have made has led me here, to this devotion. It is not that I sought you out blindly, but that the world subtly arranged itself in such a way that I could recognize what matters most. Some people call it fate, some people call it coincidence, but I call it recognition. The kind that does not need to be loud to be undeniable. The kind that quietly insists on presence, honesty, and commitment without drama, without force, without need for validation. Love is not convenience. It is not the easy path or the path that requires the least discomfort. It is choosing to stay present when it is difficult, choosing to forgive when mistakes are made, choosing to understand when the world feels unfair or unkind. It is a decision repeated daily, sometimes silently, sometimes without acknowledgement, and yet it remains because it is rooted in truth rather than desire. I do not love you for what you give me, I love you because you exist as you are, because you stir a recognition in my heart that cannot be forced, replaced, or denied. I have come to know that love is also surrender, but not the surrender of self. It is the surrender of ego, of control, of the idea that love must fit neatly into expectations or timelines. It is the acknowledgement that the other person has their own rhythms, their own needs, their own space, and that honoring that space is an act of devotion as deep as any vow. To love is not to demand presence. It is to recognize absence, to respect boundaries, to allow freedom, and to remain committed in quiet ways that no one else can measure. I have watched others misunderstand what love looks like. They mistake intensity for depth, noise for truth, possession for commitment. I have learned that real love is the opposite. It does not shout, it does not coerce, it does not demand. It simply is. It is steady, patient, observant, resilient, and enduring in ways that escape immediate recognition, but anchor the soul over time. There have been moments of doubt, moments when uncertainty crept in, when it seemed easier to walk away than to wait, when fear whispered that loyalty might be wasted. But love that is real does not surrender to doubt. It does not demand certainty from the other. It carries its own certainty quietly. It rests in trust, not in control. It grows in silence, not spectacle. It thrives in understanding, not insistence. I did not learn this overnight. I have made mistakes. I have stumbled. I have questioned my own heart. Yet every experience brought me closer to understanding that love is as much about endurance as it is about passion, as much about listening as it is about speaking, as much about presence as it is about desire. The love I carry for you is deliberate, aware, and conscious. It is the sum of patience, attention, restraint, and devotion, all offered freely without expectation or claim. I have chosen you in ways both visible and invisible, in my actions, in my thoughts, in the way I carry myself, in the quiet moments when no one else notices, and in the decision to remain faithful even when it would have been easier to turn away. This love is not performative. It does not require applause or validation. It is its own reward, its own proof, and its own anchor. I love you for the way you exist, for the way you move through the world, for the subtle ways you impact those around you without realizing it. I love you because your presence reminds me what it means to be grounded, to be aware, to be connected without possession. I love you because it is not a transaction. It is not a need. It is a recognition of truth. It is the choice to remain, to endure, to respect, and to honor every single day, without spectacle, without lame, and without expectation. The world may not understand this kind of love. It may see silence where there is depth, restraint where there is devotion, patience where there is intensity, and stillness where there is a storm contained. But I've come to know that love that requires no witness is often the strongest, the truest, the kind that lasts. It is steady when everything else shifts. It is quiet when the world demands noise. It is present when distraction calls for absence. Some loves are not meant to be understood by anyone else. They exist quietly, deeply, without justification, without proof, without expectation. They are not defined by grand gestures or dramatic declarations. They are defined by the choices that go unnoticed, the small consistencies that remain even when the world turns away, and the patience that refuses to be measured by time or applause. This love is not loud because it does not need to be. It is steady because it has a center, a gravity, a truth that does not sway with the opinions of others or the shifting tides of circumstance. I have learned that true devotion does not announce itself. It does not seek recognition. It does not demand gratitude. It simply exists, quietly moving through moments, shaping decisions, influencing thoughts, and guiding actions. It lives in the way I pause before speaking to consider your feelings, in the way I stand by without interfering unnecessarily, in the way I honor your space without hesitation or complaint. It is love that knows boundaries because it respects you as much as it cherishes the connection we share. There have been times when waiting felt unbearable, when uncertainty pressed on my chest and doubt whispered that perhaps the choice to remain devoted was a mistake. But love that is genuine does not collapse under uncertainty. It does not demand immediate clarity. It endures, observing, learning, adjusting, never abandoning its foundation. The heart that loves in this way is strong because it has chosen to remain anchored, even when the winds of confusion and fear threaten to sweep it away. I do not love you because you complete me, because you fill a void, because you make life easier or brighter in superficial ways. I love you because your existence is a quiet truth that resonates with my own, because your presence inspires patience, loyalty, and reflection, because the way you move through the world teaches me restraint, empathy, and courage. Loving you is not about consumption. It is about recognition, about alignment, about honoring a truth that is felt, not declared. I have made promises to you silently, promises that no one else has witnessed, promises that do not require ceremony or applause, promises that exist in the choices I make day after day, promises to remain steady when the world around me shifts, promises to protect the space between us with respect and care, promises to listen even when silence is deafening, promises to offer loyalty not as obligation but as an act of volition. These promises are my commitment to you, not as words on a page, but as actions that speak louder than any declaration could. Love is not a moment, it is a process. It is forged in the quiet hours of reflection, in the choices we make when no one is watching, in the ways we respect, protect, and honor one another even when it would be easier to walk away. I have loved you in these quiet ways, without spectacle, without drama, without expectation. And in doing so, I have discovered a depth of feeling that cannot be shaken by circumstance, time, or distance. It is a love that grows in subtlety and resilience, that gains strength from patience, and that thrives in understanding rather than possession. I have observed the world around us and watched how others misunderstand love. They mistake urgency for passion, insistence for devotion, chaos for depth. I have learned that love is the opposite. It does not demand, it does not coerce, it does not declare itself loudly to prove authenticity. It waits, it watches, it chooses repeatedly and deliberately, without expectation, without pressure, and without the need for approval. The act of loving you has changed the way I exist in the world. I have become more attentive, more patient, more observant. I have learned the value of silence, the strength in waiting, the wisdom in restraint, and the beauty in choosing consistently, rather than reacting impulsively. I have come to understand that love is not a possession, not a demand, not a chain. It is freedom. It is freedom to exist as you are, freedom to grow, freedom to be seen and valued without alteration, correction, or performance. Even in moments of doubt, even in moments when fear or uncertainty would have made another turn away, I have remained because love that is true does not flee from challenge. It does not collapse under difficulty. It persists in quiet ways, in small gestures, in patience, in thoughtfulness, in consideration, and in an unwavering acknowledgement of the other person's worth and autonomy. I love you for the way you exist, not for what you do, not for what you give, not for how you make life easier. I love you for the truth of your presence, for the unspoken understanding you carry, for the quiet strength you embody, and for the alignment of your being with the currents of my heart. This love is deliberate, conscious, and freely chosen. It is not motivated by need, desire, or obligation. It is motivated by recognition, by respect, by the realization that some connections are not accidental but essential. I have carried this love through time and trials, through silence and noise, through uncertainty and clarity, through absence and presence. It has not diminished, and it does not diminish. It has deepened. It has strengthened. It has grown in ways invisible to the world but undeniable to the heart. It is a love that does not depend on circumstances, applause, or validation. It simply is steady, persistent, enduring, and real. Every thought, every action, every choice I make carries a fragment of this love. It exists in the way I move, the way I speak, the way I pause before acting, the way I observe before responding. It exists in restraint, in patience, in attention, in understanding, and in commitment. It is woven into the fabric of my being, inseparable from who I am, inseparable from the way I see and experience the world. I do not love you because I have to. I do not love you because it is convenient. I love you because it is inevitable, because some truths exist beyond circumstance, beyond time, beyond observation, and beyond expectation, because some connections are unshakable, unbreakable, and undeniable, because some hearts choose fidelity, presence, and devotion over drama, spectacle, and fleeting recognition, and so every day, every hour, every moment I choose you, in ways both visible and invisible, in ways that do not demand applause, in ways that do not require notice, in ways that honor who you are and who we are together without interference or coercion. I choose you quietly, deliberately, faithfully, without condition, without hesitation, and without end.